You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Two typhoon threats active in the Western Pacific. Tropical Storm Conson is striking the Philippines right now. The local name in the Philippines is Jolina. In the Philippine Sea, further out at sea, is Typhoon Chanthu, which has strengthened substantially in the last 24 hours. A compact system that could become a very powerful typhoon as it heads towards Taiwan. These are the two main features that we're talking about this evening, local time in the Western Pacific, in the Asia region, as we monitor the impacts, mainly from Conson right now, but also talk about the forecast for Chanthu. Not just that, but of course out in the Atlantic, Larry is still there as a Category 3. It seems to go on forever, and it's just there all the time now. Headed for Bermuda slowly but surely. And we'll talk about that a little bit throughout today's stream as well. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio once again. Nice to see you again here. Of course, our main topic today is the Philippines right now, where there are Signal 2 warnings in effect for significant parts of the islands. Let's see if we can just bring that up on screen now. Those are the latest warning areas as far as I know. That's the 5 p.m. update. Can my team just confirm that's the latest?
Yeah, that's the latest 5 p.m.
Thank you, Zenitsu. And in the room right now, we have Zenitsu there. We also have Josh and Kin, I think, will be with us soon.
Kin's here.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone.
Yep, so a lot has happened very quickly, hasn't it? We're looking at the Western Pacific right now, and since, I don't know, how long was it for Jolina to become, well, Pagasa called it a typhoon at landfall.
It went from a low-pressure area to a typhoon as per Pagasa standards in less than 24 hours. So...
And Chanthu, I believe that it's almost both the storms have intensified pretty much in the matter of a day to where they are now. I mean, Chanthu we have been looking at for quite a while, but really how it did that was within 36 hours.
Very quick indeed. That's currently at 75 miles per hour, 986 millibars from our team of analysts, and Conson, they currently have that marked at, I think it was 60 miles per hour, and a pressure of 993. 60 miles per hour sustained winds, that's around 105 kilometers per hour. And as we've seen, Signal 2 warnings are in effect for significant parts of the Visayas region and southern Luzon. Let's take a look at the forecast. I suppose that's the best thing to do first of all here. Firstly, that's the JMA's graphic, although it's hard to get the proper high-resolution stuff these days since they changed their website around and don't allow image embeds anymore. But let's take a look at the JTWC forecasts. This shows the status of Jolina Conson right now. You'll hear the two names being bandied about. Jolina is the Philippine local name and the international name Conson. And you can see there the forecast from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, taking it very close to Manila there, weakening though as it does that down to 45 miles per hour, and then out in the South China Sea strengthening again, passing just south of Hainan on their forecast, to Category 1 status and beyond, possibly strengthening a bit more in the Gulf of Tonkin. very warm sea surface temperatures out there, so certainly the possibility that could happen. Let's not forget that the JTWC has enormous cones by default, but even so, it is a large cone and the storm could track anywhere within that cone. I think with the JTWC, their cones are defined by the tropical storm force winds could go anywhere within that cone, which is why they're wider than the National Hurricane Centers, for instance. So that's just a little explainer on that one. But Vietnam should be watching out for this as well. Indications, I mean, models flip-flopping a little bit, but it could be a massive rainfall event over there. As it is right now in the Philippines, we're looking at potentially, I think, 300 millimeters in some locations. Areas that we're looking at in particular, I think, Quezon, we were looking at to the Batangas region.
I think that's where it's meant to. Well, the forecast has changed a lot in the past sort of 48 hours with the model runs, and now with the JTWC, it's been sort of heading further south. At this stage, it is meant to clip Taiwan, but some models are taking it through the Batangas sort of region. Although then again, there are some models that are calling for it to curve through the Ryukyu Islands and head up towards Japan. So there's still a huge model split around the Day 5 area.
Josh?
It seems to be creeping out.
For some reason, the signal went during that whole thing. You'll have to repeat yourself, I'm afraid.
The Australian Wi-Fi. Anyways.
No, it's ours over here.
Oh.
Oh dear.
What I was saying was that the storm has the track model guidance and the forecast guidance in the past 24 hours has been shifting further south, and it has been shifting significantly. It's probably going to stable off where it is right now, but the storm a couple of days ago was expected to catapult into Japan as a powerful storm. Now it's only expected to clip the southern parts of Taiwan, but there is a model split. Some models calling for it to pass into the Batangas and the southern Batangas at that, so northern Luzon should be watching this storm quite closely. But then again, there are some models calling for a recurve through the Ryukyu Islands, so pretty much anywhere south of Naha and north of northern Luzon really has to be watching this storm, because it could track through that area. Of course, the outer reaches of that is unlikely, but it still is a possibility at this stage.
So this is Chanthu right now. The forecast from the JTWC already has it as a Category 1. They expect significant rate of intensification there, up to Category 4 status on approach to Taiwan, and, well, they're currently saying a landfall there at that intensity. So it could be one of those that does that. It's not uncommon for major typhoons to hit Taiwan in that way. But there it is. That would be a pretty big landfall nonetheless.
That would be a huge
Also, okay. Well, if I remember correctly, Pagasa has now designated the name Kiko to Chanthu.
Oh, have
and
they?
are now calling it a severe tropical storm. Severe tropical, or actually no, not that. Tropical cyclone bulletins will be issued starting 11 p.m. for Kiko or Chanthu.
So potentially quite confusing there that we have two storms with two separate names now. But there we have it. So just to
the name get the Philippine assigned it a name, the Pagasa assigned it a name.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Kiko.
just to get everyone, there's some imagery right now of Chanthu. What we can see of it, that's water vapor imagery. I think there we go. That's the infrared, the enhanced infrared showing the structure of Chanthu there, looking decent. Very high cloud tops, easily into the minus 80s.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, the radar eye of Jolina has closed.
Okay.
So the eye is closed, or is it just a mess?
Radar. It's radar. It's just
Let me
closed.
take a look.
We're on to that in a moment. Just want to talk about Chanthu right now. So this is the one that's been named Kiko by Pagasa. It's out in the Philippine Sea, just to make sure that people don't get confused between the two. So that's Chanthu right now, and this is, yep, that is Conson, Philippine name Jolina, and you can see it moving over the Philippine Islands there. Those place names overlaid, which Zenitsu is saying has a. Are you saying a radar closed eye wall
Yeah, the eye has. It's
or a
got
collapsed
closed
eye?
Or
No,
wait,
not a collapse.
wait. No, I wasn't talking.
Close.
Wait. Just a correction. I was talking about Jolina.
Yeah, this is what we're looking at.
If I
I'm
said
sharing my
Chanthu.
screen now.
Oh.
Yeah. You
Hold
can
on.
take a look.
Oh. Okay then.
I've got some radar, albeit not good radar, but I have some radar up right now, and it certainly is. The eye, it's certainly closed. That's for sure. And
Okay.
it is fairly defined.
Yeah. It's based on. Oh yeah, definitely. It's on Doppler radar. Yeah, it definitely is. I can send a picture of that.
Interesting. Looks a little loose down there, but is that going to be a sign of strengthening then?
Wouldn't shock me.
Most likely. It like this is not gonna be the first time a storm has used the Sibuyan Sea to strengthen. We've had Mellor and Fanfo, so honestly, this is shocking, but honestly not that surprising.
I really don't think it is very surprising if that is the case, considering that the way it's strengthened before landfall.
Out of curiosity, would the mountains in the area, I mean, I know there's some fairly tall volcanoes and mountains in the area, would that disrupt the storm's intensification in any way?
At the moment, I don't think so, because it's not over the particularly tall areas.
It's actually not over land right now.
Well, yeah, there is that. Let's get some questions, so you can send them in live. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. I'll start with the most recent. Bron Jacob says, do you think the inland sea... Oh, this is basically the same thing we were just talking about, but I'll say it anyway. Do you think the inland sea where Conson is heading to near Bicol will make it the same situation as Ramazan in 2014, where it strengthens?
I would have no idea how to answer that because I don't know much about Ramazan, but I do know it intensified in a weird spot.
So basically, Ramazan was it basically intensified. It's not really that same situation, but like, so basically, it might. Ramazan passed through that tiny gulf in Bicol region. So.
There's another look at that radar that was sent in by Zenitsu a few moments ago, showing the what appears to be a closed eye wall.
That's the Pagasa Doppler radar.
What are we expecting for conditions in Manila? What sort of conditions are we expecting around Manila, in Manila, that sort of area?
Well, if I could take some stuff from the bulletin.
Sure.
Yeah.
Pag-asa is expecting moderate to heavy, with at times intense rains over Metro Manila in the next 24 hours. And we may see gale force winds over Metro Manila as well, as per Pag-asa. The storm is expected to move directly over southern Metro Manila. So.
Currently, I think there's about a 35% chance of gale force winds in Manila right now. That percentage will probably rise.
What's the chance of, out of curiosity, typhoon conditions or close to that sort of area?
I would imagine fairly low right now. I've not checked, but I think it'll be quite low. The wind probabilities, I think, are underestimated in this region.
Well, over here in Metro Manila, it's not raining that much, but we are expecting conditions to deteriorate once it gets into the early.
Well,
Um,
certainly hope that everyone in Manila does stay safe from this storm. Because
yeah, especially what we have seen in Eastern Samar and actually the Samar area in general, just pure destruction. You know. Mm,
We'll talk about that more in a moment. We'll take some more questions. Will Conson move farther north than expected and threaten the coast of China? It can't be ruled out, but
mm,
I am feeling that it's going to be
mm.
southwards.
Actually, yeah. It's expected to like impact Hainan instead, which is also China, but still.
Yeah, I think they're more referring to the mainland, but I think it could. I mean, there's been a few model runs recently that have taken it further south along the coast of Vietnam, and that's where the massive rain threat would come in there. We'll see. Will Conson make landfall in Marinduque?
Marinduque. Well, as per Pagasa, yeah, it will.
All right.
But okay, so I could take. So here's a question: what is the rainfall forecast for Bulacan? Also moderate to heavy with at times intense rains.
how much rain is expected?
I just said.
And of course, it
Yeah,
depends in different
Right.
areas. I mean, we've got our estimates scrolling along the bottom of the screen for a lot of the locations impacted.
yeah.
It looks like there's going to be a swathe really towards southwestern Luzon that's going to be in the region of 300 millimeters, maybe a little more.
So basically, in approximately 45 minutes, the next Pagasa bulletin will be released, and we will have new news regarding the signal warnings and if Pagasa has upgraded or downgraded its intensity.
There's a comment there about the HWRF saying that Chanthu will reach Category 5 in 6 hours. That would never
Is it
happen,
insane?
but I need to see that just to see if that's actually
I
true on
just
the
had a
model
look at
run.
that. That isn't going to happen. Category 3 it is.
Yeah, basically, we shouldn't base our judgment on one model, but I mean, like if that's actually the case, then
No, it's not. That they're calling for a Category 5 peak in a few days.
Which is
Which,
reasonable.
well,
Yeah.
it could happen. It is never underestimate the Western Pacific. That's all I can say, and I learned that very early on in my trekking career.
Yeah.
expect the unexpected has became such a statement this 2021 you know
Actually, can
I-
we focus on what sort of conditions or can we just talk a bit on what we are expecting in Taiwan, sort of around rainfall and
Oh yes,
wind speeds?
yeah
it could be a
have some.
massive rainfall event for Taiwan. If it
yeah
takes a track similar to what the HWRF is saying, actually, we could be looking at well in excess of 500 millimeters of rain for large areas of north and eastern Taiwan.
Jesus.
I'll grab up a forecast. I will.
Okay.
Taiwan. All right.
Whilst we wait on that, here's the satellite imagery progression of how things were earlier on during the daylight hours, and you can see the last few frames there transitioning to nighttime as it is there now, along with the infrared showing how those storms have progressed in recent hours.
Well, here are the latest flood heavy rainfall warnings for southern Luzon.
All right.
Red rainfall warning is now in effect for Sorsogon and Masbate. um, evacuation is encouraged. In the orange rainfall warning level, Northern Samar, Albay, and Marinduque, and yellow rainfall warning, Romblon, Oriental Mindoro, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, and Catanduanes. So really, those rainfall totals are looking concerning.
Hmm. Josh, over to you.
Okay, so we're taking a look at accumulated precipitation now. So total rainfall expected in Taiwan and the general area. Really, you can also see parts of China there, and this is as a result of Chanthu, or I believe it's got the Philippine name of Kiko now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. So
It has been
as we
confirmed.
as we play this run through, we're now at hour 48. Hour 48, we should be seeing modest rainfall totals. This is in millimeters. The peak rainfall total should be around 100 millimeters over the next 2 days for Taiwan. But you can see, as we start getting towards when this storm will be heading
There it
right
is.
for Taiwan, down here, not the gust swathe, the rainfall swathe down here. Really menacing already on the model runs, that's for sure. And you can tell already it's going to be quite powerful. It's going to have a defined center because you can see that on the northern and the southern sides there is significantly more rainfall than towards the center, because that's only the passage of the eye and not most of the intense rainfall. And parts or Ipiat Island could be receiving up towards 300 millimeters of rain in about 12 hours to 24 hours from this storm. So that's a huge rainfall event. And as this thing heads into Taiwan, we're seeing rainfall totals up towards 500 millimeters. That's 20 inches for the southern parts and into the western parts as well. Taipei itself, probably around 250 millimeters, and that's already enough to cause some very significant flash flooding concerns. But when you start getting these ridiculous rainfall totals of around 500 and in places up to 730 millimeters, which is the peak from the GFS, that's going to cause a serious and prolonged flash flooding and river flooding threat. And yeah, the peak rainfall at 180 hours for Taiwan is 735.6 millimeters.
My memory might be hazy, but I think that's pretty similar to Nipatak.
And that's Basco within the pink color.
Not what we want.
Not really what we want, obviously.
Yeah, 28, nearly 30 inches in some spots. So that is huge.
Do you have any other models there?
I do. I have the GFS wind. Would you like me to look at the 10-meter wind, sustained winds, or the 10-meter gust swathe?
Well, the sustained winds is more important. But after this, I'd also like to see if there's any other models.
I have the ECMWF as well on this, and I should be able to nab the HWF as it starts loading in. But here's the GFS 10-meter sustained winds in knots. You can see down the bottom right corner. Might not be able to see it actually. That's the maximum winds that we'll be getting at this particular time. So already by the GFS, this is a Category 3 storm with maximum winds of 100 knots, and that moves just north of Itpiat and the Batanes Islands, and it gets up at peaks at around 115, and as a Category 4 strength system, just as it starts moving towards Taiwan. It might weaken slightly. Before. I'm not sure if that's a model having a bit of trouble.
No, it's just, I mean, it is very reminiscent, the GFS right now. That's very reminiscent of Nipatak.
Yeah.
That is certainly not a good scenario, but also the strongest winds for the southern parts of Taiwan should be peaking, or there is a location right in the southern tip. I'm not sure of the name of that place, but 60 knots sustained winds there. Some of the islands surrounding Taiwan might be up towards 80 knots sustained. In fact, one of them up to 101 knots sustained. So this is massive sustained winds. This is huge winds. This isn't stuff that you see every year. So
well, that's bearing in mind the GFS underestimates usually on the winds.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother story if the GFS is underestimating this system. Honestly, the conditions are there for Category 3, Category 4, so whatever comes out of this storm, I don't think it's going to be a nice one. I will try and load up the ECMWF. That is certainly possible.
Yeah,
Would you
I
like me
would
to
like to see another perspective. So that's taking it south there.
The ECMWF has been really weird on this storm so far. Some runs it's been calling for a Category 4, borderline Category 5. Then other runs it's barely calling for a typhoon strength system. But, I mean, I kind of hope that it sort of verifies, because it is a far weaker system than what the GFS is saying. Still powerful stuff moving through the Batanes Islands, at least 50 knots. So not stuff to be toyed with. Batanes, all right. Thank you for the pronunciation there. And yeah, it does get up towards near typhoon status, 60, maybe if the run's going to load through. This is sort of getting a little bit further range now, making landfall on China as a 59 knot system, so nearly Category 1 strength, a lot weaker, which is good.
It's going to be stronger. It's already 65 knots right now, so
yeah. I don't see how that's a possible scenario.
All right, well, that's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah. Okay. If I could just answer a question.
Yep.
That was posted. Will Chanthu merge with Conson in the South China Sea? Probably not, because they're far, and there's not really that much of a sign that Fujiwara effect will happen.
I think we're also joined by Kin now as well. Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Kin.
He's there.
Thank you for the donation, Cyclone Epic.
Saying sup, Kin.
Oh, Kin has... alright.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the latest satellite imagery of the storm right now. Let's take a short break from the Western Pacific just to remind us all of what's going on over there in the Atlantic. This is latest visible imagery of Hurricane Larry, which is still a Category 3 in the Atlantic Ocean. The National Hurricane Center has that, I think, still at 120 miles per hour. Yep, and a pressure of 958. I'll just sweep through the imagery that we have of Larry. There it is. Looking a little bit ragged today by the looks of things, certainly compared to recent days. And there's the infrared imagery. Just to take a look at the latest National Hurricane Center forecast for Larry. There it is right now. They expect it to weaken down to Category 2 by tomorrow and pass Bermuda to the east. Bermuda well out of the cones, so fingers crossed it should get away without significant impacts. However, as a extratropical cyclone, it could deliver hurricane force winds to Atlantic Canada, Newfoundland in particular. When you look at that, making a fast pass there, could be some pretty strong winds there for Newfoundland, so people need to be watching out for that. Former hurricanes, they can cause substantial difficulties for the Canadian Maritimes there. So that's basically the latest on Larry, and nothing else is going on outside of the Western Pacific right now.
Did we want to quickly touch on the wave threat for the eastern United States coast?
There's a wave there. Well, yes.
A wave threat. The seas. High
yes,
seas.
There is obviously that problem that strong storms out in the Atlantic can cause. Of course, we remember Lorenzo in 2019 killed one person on the US East Coast, and it was on the other side of the ocean. These surf conditions can cause problems when the storms even are far out to sea along the eastern seaboard of the United States and the Caribbean islands.
I was just going to say that, Lorenzo, even Category 4 storms can cause significant problems a long way away from land. This is... it's probably about the same magnitude as Lorenzo, a bit weaker, but it is still a very large system, so the wave threat is still very high. 5 feet at least for some of the Carolinas, up towards 10 feet. And as this thing approaches the northern reaches of the United States, the waves could be significantly higher than that.
Well, that's our 4 minutes of Larry done for this hour of coverage. Now back to the Western Pacific, where we're currently watching Tropical Storm Conson, Philippine name Jolina, and obviously keep sending in your questions. We'll take them on as we go through this. Sinitsu,
Yeah.
I thought you wanted to say something.
Oh no, no, I didn't really.
Oh, okay.
But other than Pagasa, tropical cyclone bulletin in 30 minutes. These are usually late, but um, we are expected to see a shift in signal warnings for the storm.
Now, currently, this is the warning map right now. Signal 2 warnings for a significant part of the Visayas and southern Luzon area. So what are you expecting at the next update then, in terms of the distribution of those warnings?
More like, I'd say like around more signal 2 warnings on the northwest. We'd gradually see those signal number 1 warnings in Visayas eventually, be downgraded, as those conditions are probably not going to be felt anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, basically, to explain this signal system for the new viewers, signal number 1 is basically tropical depression winds of 30 to 60 kilometers per hour, and if I'm getting this correctly, signal number 2 is gale force winds. 60 around 60 to 100 kilometers per hour, if I'm getting this right.
Yeah, so that's basically low to mid tropical storm
121.
status there. And
Yeah,
then signal
62.
3 is high end tropical storm. I think that covers category 1 as well.
Signal number 3 is 121 to 170 kilometers per hour.
Oh, that's much higher then.
So I'd say that's around category 1 to 2.
Yeah.
In 10 minutes.
So and we had signal 3 warnings yesterday, didn't we, for some areas?
Yes, we did for Samar, and Masbate. We have someone saying in chat that Pagasa is live. I'll make sure to keep track on that.
So for the time being, this is the latest, once again, JTWC forecast. They expect a little bit of weakening in the next day as it moves along the western coast of Luzon and then out into the South China Sea, strengthening gradually to category 1 typhoon status. And as you saw there, that's the forecast cone for Chanthu, already a category 1 typhoon and strengthening almost all the way to Taiwan is on their forecast right now. Some questions then. How about the area of interest in the Eastern Pacific Ocean? Well, we can take a very quick look at that. I'm always resourceful. We've always got at least one image of what's going on. Oh no, we haven't. The Eastern Pacific imagery is not working. I think there's actually an outage at NOAA right now. All the satellite imageries don't appear to be working over there, so I'm not sure what we can take away from that. But that area of interest is likely to become a hurricane in the Eastern Pacific and could threaten the Baja California Peninsula a little bit. We had a few more questions. What do we think of the peak of Larry was a question that we had earlier. I think Larry could have gone further than it did, but in the end it was a very picturesque storm, and it's kept itself going for a very long time at category 3 status, that's for sure. What was the strongest typhoon to hit Asia in history? There's probably quite a few contenders for that. I don't actually know what the lowest pressure recording is in the Western Pacific on land. That's something that I'll have to look for in the history part. Let's see. More questions. How prepared are the Philippines and Taiwan for flash flooding? It's only been a week since deadly flash flooding from the remnants of Ida hit the northeast US. Any comment on flooding preparations? Well, it would seem not at the moment from our team, but what we often see in the Philippines is you do often see flooding, especially in the populated areas from these storms. Even sometimes it's the weaker storms that cause the worst flooding issues. We've seen examples of that in the past. So that's the latest forecast track for Chanthu right now. Let's go back to some imagery again. Let's see if we can update this right now. That might take a little while, but that is Chanthu and how it's been progressing. Blowing up in convection on the southern side with quite easily minus 80-degree cloud tops in several areas there. And back to Conson, which is blowing up too.
Surprisingly, we have seen a closed eye wall on radar. So.
And to try and give a little idea of its location right now, the center of it must be, would you say, Zenitsu just north of Romblon?
It's not actually north of Romblon. It's
still further
around,
east.
I'd say still southeast of Romblon, or some. Wait, no, not really southeast. Let me just double check.
Yes,
My
please.
information. It's north of Masbate, northwest.
Yeah, so northeast of Romblon then, basically.
Yeah.
So that's where the storm is currently centered. Eyes really on Marinduque for the potential next landfall, which is roughly 80 kilometers away, and then on towards southwestern Luzon. And those areas are probably where the most rainfall will be dropped. Again, we could be looking at in excess of 300 millimeters of rain for those areas. So I'm pretty sure that would cause some significant flooding issues and flash flooding. Would you say, Zenitsu, that is often the biggest threat in these storms?
Yeah, it really is the biggest threat, flooding. We have seen many storms in 2020 that have had major flooding issues in like around central Luzon and Bicol. But generally that's the main issue. It's not just the winds, but it's rainfall.
Yeah, often is an issue. There was a question about whether Chanthu could be comparable to Goni in any way. It is in a similar location and a similar small size, I would say.
Well, yeah, but it's a different forecast.
It is a different forecast, but storms in that location are usually poised for rapid intensification. It has to be said. We've seen it. As a matter of fact,
those are very favorable conditions, actually.
I can't remember in 2015 what storm was that. Was that Kopu that did that too near the Philippines, or was that another Goni?
I'm not really that sure. I'm not that educated around those type of storms. But let me respond to another question that was asked. Hi, I live in Manila, and it seems as if Conson or Jolina's tracking over us, just asking if signal tree impacts are possible in Manila and surrounding areas. As per the latest pag-asa update, um, the most that we are likely to get is a signal number two, but that shouldn't stop you from preparing for anything that may be unexpected.
So, those who have joined us recently, once again, these two storms have formed out of virtually nothing in a pretty short amount of time. Conson was first yesterday, forming, and according to Bagassa, became a typhoon as it made landfall on Samar, and then
Yeah.
JTWC have it down to 60 miles per hour. They peaked it at 65, didn't they?
I believe so.
And just for my
Since
information, Pagasa, what do they have it at right now?
at the moment, if I could get my information right, 100 kilometers per hour,
Right.
10 minutes.
Okay, so maybe
100 k's is 55 knots at 65 miles per hour.
yes, indeed. Let's take some more questions. Can Typhoon Jolina do an eyewall replacement cycle? Well,
In this space, no, I don't think so. And it's not officially a typhoon right now, as per all the agencies in WISPAC and Force.
I mean, yeah, but you were talking about the eyewall on radar earlier. It's hard to tell really. It looked a little bit loose. You know, all storms do have that structure
Yeah.
usually, but I think it probably lacks strength, which is why it looks a little messy on satellite. I don't think there's any rapid intensification or even maybe any intensification going on right now.
For some reason, okay, never mind. Bagas's radar did not disappear at 7:30.
Okay.
And it as looking at the Doppler radar, it seems to be trying to thicken that eye wall. If I could just send a picture of that.
All right.
It looks
I have the
somewhat
late.
better.
Oh,
You have the latest.
I have the latest HWF run up, and I know we're
That
just
can't
going
be
over
good.
the MWF and the GFS. So here's another look at what the storm is. Of course, the HWF is the intensity forecast on the HWF is to take. It tends to really blow storms up, but I would not be surprised if the HWF wants to verify with this system because the conditions are near perfect for this storm. The HWF is calling for I believe a 126 knot peak at this time, but then again the whole run hasn't loaded through. And in the latest frames, it looks like it's turning towards Taiwan. And if anything, this looks exactly like the GFS run. In fact, I would almost call this a GFS run with a different intensity. So that's two models that are supporting the exact same Taiwan.
I think that's very slightly further south there, but point taken.
This is at hour 87. This is hour 87. This is an hour 120.
Let me just check a few other models at my disposal here as well.
Well, the HWF has a landfall on Idiot. The GFS also has a landfall on.
Okay. If I could just answer a few questions real quick. For certain, will there be a chance that Conson will interact with Chanthu? Honestly, in my opinion, and probably some of the others too, not that much of a chance. I mean, if some miracle happened, then I wouldn't really call it a miracle. I don't really think there's a chance that Conson will interact with Chanthu, considering most storms are far away from each other and are expected to remain at that distance.
One of the two loop year models, like the CMC, is calling for it to for Chanthu to wrap around Conson. There is a possibility, and you saw that ECMWF run. There might be a possibility that it's responsible for the storm moving a bit further south and missing Taiwan to the south and then giving China a landfall.
TMC.
But the best idea at the moment is that the storm will sweep across Taiwan and then could impact the eastern coast of China once again, like Infa, but then move more decidedly northeast, and then the latest GFS long range is calling for it to move along the south coast of Japan, and a lot of population centers getting storm force winds as it moves along the coastline. But that's a long way out yet.
Ken is showing the 413 Philippines forecast track.
Yes,
All right,
are
here we go.
Yes, we are actually forecasting rain intensification in answer to the question that should Conson may intensify. As of our forecast right now, yes, in collaboration with our analyst Kenneth, we are forecasting 110 kilometers per hour speed, that is 75 miles per hour in 1 minute, and it could hit Hainan, are forecasting right now.
And you can find our Force 13 Philippines team and all their updates on Facebook and Twitter at Force 13PH, as you can see at the bottom there. Well, actually, you can't on my screen, but that's how to get there. They put in a lot of work as well, delivering the latest information on Philippine threats. More than we do at the main channel.
Surprisingly.
No, not surprisingly. I mean, we cover the whole world with our updates, so for more Philippine centered information, you can go there.
For more information, our Facebook account is facebook.com/force13ph, and our Twitter account is Force13Philippines as well. That's surprising. Anyway.
Epsilon says, is there a small dry slot entering Chanthu's core? I can see what you're talking about, actually. I don't think it's going to be important. If it is.
It doesn't look like anything major. Is it a dry spot?
Yeah. Yeah, we are getting reports in chat from Naga City that very heavy rainfall.
Chanthu is looking better, by the way, though, when you look at this imagery. The eye's starting to come out a little bit more. So I think we will have more strengthening from this. I imagine it must be mid-category 1 now, rather than low end.
Out of curiosity, what are the chances of the Philippines waking up to high range category 2, maybe even category Chanthu tomorrow?
Pretty high.
Really?
Yeah, pretty high. Considering what it's already done, you're talking about the next 12 hours. Quite easily could get to high-end category 2, category 3.
Wow.
Okay, so
This isn't strength you'd see every day, though.
Well, you see it every year. At least one storm does that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so to answer some other questions in chat, Force 13, will Chanthu's track have any effect to Babuyan and Batanes group of islands? Basically,
yes.
yeah, it looks like it. And what is Force 13's forecast peak for Typhoon Chanthu?
I don't know what our
not that
team
sure.
have put out, actually.
Yeah. I mean, who knows?
Personally, I'd say anything towards
But
100 and 135 knots is possible, and I'm not saying category.
Well,
Go on.
The Force 13 team haven't put out a forecast of their own for Chanthu yet. So I guess we'll go with the JWC forecast. They're calling for a 115 knot peak, which is category 4. That's Conson. There's Chanthu's forecast once again. And they're calling for that to occur by Saturday, Friday and Saturday as it approaches Taiwan.
Here's another question. Force 13 is constant dealing with wind shear. Not really at the moment. It's just peak favorable conditions in the Sibuyan Sea. What is the status on Typhoon Conson? Our cyclone analyst team at around 5 p.m. have Conson at 50 knots or around 55 miles per hour and 993 millibars moving west-northwest at 10 miles per hour.
So sustained winds of around 105 kilometers per hour or so, which obviously justifies Signal 2 warnings. And just a reminder of the latest warnings there, that's how it looks. But Pegasa are expecting to update fairly soon, is my understanding.
Yeah, it's in 10 minutes, but they're always late because they have to filter out the info that is being given to them. But honestly, you know, quality over, never.
Quality over quantity.
Oh, actually, better late than never.
Okay.
Blooper.
Are there systems that we could compare to Conson in terms of intensity and track moving through southern Luzon? Probably a lot of storms you could compare it to. I mean, this kind of track and intensity is, you got to say, it's pretty common.
It certainly is.
I
couldn't pick a name for you, but it certainly is common.
Like I mean, my goodness, in some years we've found back in the historic archives something like 7 or 8 typhoons that have moved through the Philippines in 3 or 4 in about, I think it was 8 weeks or something like that. Just ridiculous, and a lot of them move through the central part. It's very common to see tracks and intensities like these, and usually they head on into the South China Sea and affect more land over there at the other side. And more questions about, will it intensify into a typhoon in the South China Sea? I would say that is quite likely.
Most likely, yeah. Conson 2010 is similar to Conson 2021, and I wouldn't say so in terms of its track, but intensity-wise, probably.
Yeah, 2013 came close.
Here's a fun fact. Conson 2010 fired the Pagasa director.
Conson, what?
In 2010.
And for what reason was that?
Basically, Pagasa's forecast was like all wonky, so Metro Manila wasn't able to prepare, thus devastation equals the firing of the Pagasa director.
Well,
Camera for forecasting.
hopefully they've done better for this one. And a few people sending in their their observations on the ground as well at this time. Raining in Quezon City.
Quezon, yeah, light rain. Is okay for certain. Is it a possibility that Conson's large outflow disruption? Not really, and I don't think it's that large.
Let's have another look on the wide scale infrared. It's a little bit, but
Not that large.
I don't see it causing an issue. We'll be running for a few more minutes here. It's just an hour-long update, but keep sending in your questions. We'll try to answer them in the remaining time that we've got. Just to reiterate the latest information, Typhoon Conson is the middle one there, in the middle of your screen.
Typhoon.
It's actually a
Yeah,
severe
tropical storm. Was a typhoon according to Pegasa earlier, but a tropical storm at this point. Philippine name Jolina. Expected to become a typhoon in the South China Sea. Signal 2 warnings remain in effect for large parts of the northern Visayas and southern Luzon. On the eastern side of the image there is Typhoon Chanthu, which currently has winds of 75 miles per hour, but looks like it's strengthening and is expected to continue to rapidly intensify and probably reach Category 4 status on approach to Taiwan on Friday.
In 5 minutes, we may have the latest information on Jolina from Pagasa. But
have we taken a look at the National Hurricane Center? Is that the agency that's issuing them? Have we taken a look at their graphics as well? The chances of tropical storm force winds over a particular location.
For where?
No, nothing in particular. I haven't actually myself, but the graphics that the National Hurricane Center produces, they have them in the Western Pacific, and they have chances of tropical storm force winds. I'll take a look for.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
The chances right now for tropical storm force conditions. I'll share my screen actually, and you can bring them up, Nathan. The chances of tropical storm force winds from Chanthu, southern Taiwan right now has been rated at 70%, and for parts of the Batanes or Batangas or however I pronounce it, it's between
Batanes.
Batanes. All right.
We'll get Josh on a Philippine pronunciation course after this.
I'm from Australia. I'm not too familiar with those locations. But yeah, certainly significant chances already. And I mean, this storm's still quite a long way out.
Just to briefly answer some questions, actually. Okay. If Chanthu takes maximum advantage of environmental conditions, can it make a run for super typhoon status?
Absolutely.
Certainly. In fact, that's almost possible.
Yeah. And what is the track of Chanthu? I believe we've already answered this. It's headed towards the east. Not east, west, actually.
Yeah, but a slight curvature towards the northwest later on in the forecast period there. JTWC forecast track here. Don't forget that the gale force winds can enter any part of that cone. It could shift a little right or left. And a question there about whether it will make an impact in Hong Kong. If it moves south of that forecast, which still the ECMWF is on board with that, then Hong Kong will probably see tropical storm impacts.
So some other question. Can Jolina re-intensify based on ECMWF while heading towards southeast Luzon? It might. We can see a close eye wall in radar. I'm not that sure if that's a sign of actual intensification, but
I think we'll see only a little bit of strengthening, if at all, in Jolina between now and
the Sibuyan Sea.
Well, yeah. There.
But the Sibuyan Sea has been pretty notorious for like island. So.
It has, but it's already halfway over it, nearly. So
you can see some convection.
I don't see it personally. The convection's not the right profile for me. It's waning a little bit in the latest imagery, assuming that this is the latest. It may not be anymore. This here should be the latest frames. So yeah, no, I'm not buying it, but it's still going to produce a lot of rainfall and gale force winds, which of course can cause all kinds of issues in this area. And then it could strengthen more once it moves on towards China and Vietnam. Guys, we're going to have to cut it short here. We're finishing up now. Thanks very much for joining us.
Oh,
Sunitsu, Josh, and Kim.
waiting.
Sorry?
Oh, we're actually waiting for the Pagasa 8 p.m. update.
Well,
as you said, that generally comes in late.
Yeah.
But we are finishing up here at this point. I'm sure all of the information will be published on our social media feeds and, of course, the Force 13 Philippines feed. You can find them on Facebook and Twitter. Search Force 13 Philippines. These storms, of course, are progressing. Chanthu on the road to intensifying substantially by the looks of things. So we will have regular updates on both these storms as their progress continues in the Western Pacific. We'll also, of course, have more on Larry in the Atlantic as time goes on. Still a Category 3 over there, but for now, that's it from us. We'll probably have more live coverage in the morning.